I'm Russell, and this is Voice Over Work, an audiobook sampler. Where do you listen? Today is the 2nd of September, 2024. Have you ever felt tongue-tied around others? Or maybe you avoid social situations altogether because of constant worry and self-doubt. Well, in today's episode, we'll delve into the strategies and techniques outlined in Nick Trenton's book, Social Skills for the Overthinker. This book explores how to understand your anxious brain, soothe its fears, and develop the confidence to navigate social interactions with ease. Today's episode is the chapter-by-chapter preview of Nick Trenton's book, Social Skills for the Overthinker. Chapter 1, Inside the Overthinker's Mind, Rumination. Meet Jamie. She's someone who hates small talk and has never found socializing easy. She believes that it's difficult to make friends and stressful to keep them, and frequently wonders whether it's all worth it. Why do other people seem to find it so much easier than she does? Having stewed over the problem for literally decades, she eventually concludes that it's because she's too sensitive, she's an introvert, she has low self-esteem. But the truth is, none of these reasons are the real cause of Jamie's difficulty with people. Take a look at the following scenario and see if you can spot what the problem really is. Jamie has just finished a Zoom meeting with colleagues and a few supervisors. It was pure hell. She finds herself lightheaded, on edge, and unable to settle down to anything for the rest of the day. For a few minutes, she even feels tearful and then suddenly angry. She tries to focus on her work, but she can't help returning to a moment in the meeting when she had asked a question. She replays the awkward moment in her mind over and over again. Was she too flustered? Could everyone tell she was nervous? Why did she say what she did instead of something clearer, more intelligent, smoother? Why did she have to be such an idiot and mispronounce the word epitome? When the supervisor remarked that it was time to cut to the chase, was he actually referring to her? Did they all think she talked too much? Did she ramble? Was her answer really unsophisticated? Or worse, did it hurt someone's feelings? Cross a line? Why was everyone quiet for a few seconds after she spoke? Whew. Now, reading all the above, can you see that Jamie's problem is not socializing at all? Jamie does not have a problem with social situations or with other people. She doesn't have a problem with her work, her communication style, her appearance, her intelligence, or any of the other things her brain is feverishly throwing up as a potential threat. Rather, Jamie's problem is that she is overthinking, and it's making everything worse. Jamie's particular flavor of rumination is called post-event rumination, and it's what it sounds like. Painfully replaying social events in the mind over and over, but only focusing on negative aspects or even inventing them from scratch. In this book, we'll be looking at the phenomenon of social anxiety, but with a big focus on the anxiety part. There are plenty of ways to learn to communicate, to make friends, to listen well, and to build rapport. But none of these techniques can be done if you're so anxious that you cannot get out of your head long enough to start practicing them. Thus, in solving the anxiety problem, we free ourselves up to engage with socializing for what it is, a safe, neutral skill that can be learned and mastered, just like any other skill. Throughout the book, we'll be examining exactly how anxiety gets in the way of us learning to develop natural. Chapter 2, getting out of your head. Curiosity is medicine. Imagine for a moment a golden Labrador puppy. Picture in your mind how such a puppy moves in the world, what it does, and how it treats every new encounter. Can you envision it bouncing excitedly from one new thing to the next? Can you see how it explores, runs around, and puts its nose all over the place, sniffing everything? The way a Labrador puppy explores its environment is the same way that all healthy animals explore theirs, human animals included. The natural default mode for organisms of all kinds is to engage with the environment, to seek out mates and food, to explore and uncover something new and unknown, to ask, in a way, what's here for me? If this vitality, engagement, and interaction with the environment is what characterizes normal, healthy animals, then it's detachment that characterizes unhappy, unhealthy ones. When people are depressed or anxious, they're not engaged with their environment in this way. They lose their interest in the world and in other people, and turn only inward. They lose any lust for life, any striving, and any ability to interact, even physically moving less. Try to imagine, then, that anxiety is a problem of misdirected attention. Every being comes into the world with energy and life in them, and they can direct this toward actions that help them achieve their goals. They use this energy to solve problems, to overcome adversity, to create new things, to power their learning, and ultimately, to get them what they want out of life. But sometimes this energy gets turned inward and gets trapped there, perhaps in endless loops that go round and never seem to amount to anything. For the socially anxious, the curious state of mind is like medicine. It gets you out of your head and back into the world, where you can start acting, engaging, learning, creating, communicating. In fact, some theorists say that disengagement from the world is not a symptom in depression and anxiety, but a cause, i.e., people become depressed or anxious precisely because they have forgotten how to engage with the world in healthy ways. In the previous section, we looked at an example of post-event rumination. The truth is that such rumination is most likely to happen when the interaction was one where the person wasn't genuinely engaged. Anxious people tend to live 50 worries behind. Basically, they lie awake at night, unable to sleep, because they're not focused on their current tiredness and how comfortable their bed is, but on how anxious they felt at a party yesterday. But the only reason they were anxious at the party yesterday is because, instead of being at that party in the moment, they were focusing on how anxious they were and all the annoying things that had happened to them earlier in the day. So there are two problems. One, anxiety keeps you away from the real present moment. Two, it keeps you trapped elsewhere, i.e., the past, the future. Chapter 3, Engage Again. Visualization. The good news, if you're an overthinker, you're already a master at visualization. The bad news, you've been imagining only the worst possible things. Mental visualization is an incredibly powerful but underused technique. While many overthinkers are Olympic-level catastrophizers and what-if aficionados, they are much less adept at imagining what could go right and what it would look like for them to not only cope, but thrive. Your own visualization abilities can be likened to a personal VR system. It's how you reconnect with the power of your own mind to create your experience. Instead of being reactive and responding passively to the world as it unfolds, usually in ways we don't like or find scary, we proactively create the kind of experience we most want to have and adjust ourselves internally to make that possible. There are many different ways to use visualization, and for different purposes. Most techniques assume one of two primary forms. 1. Creating relaxation, emotional regulation, and a feeling of calm to cope with and counter social anxiety, whether prior, during, or after an event. 2. Imagining in vivid detail a scenario you'd like to make more real in your life. We can visualize in order to make a difficult situation easier to manage, or to flesh out, in our mind's eye, a situation that doesn't yet exist, but we'd like it to. Let's consider the first type. Creating your safe space. Anxiety is not all in your head. Thoughts and feelings may seem abstract, but the anxiety response is, first and foremost, a physiological reality. That is, it's all in your body. The entire reason you can feel anxiety at all is because your ancestors experienced a survival advantage in possessing a system that allowed them to respond to dangerous situations. The fight or flight mechanism serves a vital purpose. Your sympathetic nervous system activates to prepare the body for survival action. Your digestion pauses, your blood vessels dilate, your heart rate soars, and your body fills with tension and alertness. You spring into action, defend yourself, or flee the threat. Your system calms down again, and all is well. Except in some cases, we simply stay in that mode of hyperarousal because we keep activating our sympathetic nervous system with anxious thoughts. Human beings, then, have a unique ability to terrify themselves. They respond to the thought of a dangerous situation in exactly the same way as they respond to a real dangerous situation. That's why you can be at a party filled with happy, friendly people, yet your body is responding in the same way it would if it were alone in a jungle at night surrounded by vicious animals. Once your anxiety response has already been triggered this way, it can be very difficult to try to reason with yourself. That is, until you're calm again. When you're anxious, you might think, I'm terrible. Chapter 4. Take action. Being sociable, confident, and capable is not something you feel. It's something you do. In previous chapters, we've taken a look at what anxious overthinking is, how to get out of your head and back into the world, and how to use visualization and things like role play to bridge the sometimes scary gap between the two. Practice and strategy are so important, but at some point, socializing is not an academic or abstract activity, but something you do collaboratively with other people. We ultimately learn to be better at socializing by socializing, not by thinking, planning, imagining, or hoping. No amount of insight into your childhood or sophisticated psychological theory will bring you half as close to improvement as taking the leap out into the world with others. Put a fence around your rumination. One thing that can keep us away from taking conscious, intelligent action in this way is, obviously, overthinking it. We first ruminate about how embarrassed we were or might be, about what others are thinking of us, and whether we said something wrong or awkward. The irony is that as we become more social and take those brave steps out of our comfort zone, our rumination may actually increase. We may feel more strongly than ever that there is something fundamentally wrong or different about us, or perhaps that it's too late to learn, that changing is too costly, too embarrassing, or too difficult. We might find the content of our overthinking starts to shift toward making ever more convincing excuses for why we can't, we shouldn't, we mustn't. One thing to keep in mind is that you cannot think your way out of overthinking, and you cannot worry your way out of anxiety. If you're doing that, all that's happening is more of the same. Rumination is like the tar baby in the old school fairy tale. The more you try to wrestle with it, the more you find yourself stuck to it and unable to escape. In other words, the best way to engage with overthinking is not to engage with it. Engage instead with the world around you. Remember that anxiety is an ancient evolutionary adaptation that exists entirely for your survival. Alarm and hyperarousal evolved precisely so that it can be channeled into action that will save your life. In modern terms, concerns and worries are meant to focus your mind on potential problems so that you can take steps to fix them. Unless you are converting that stress into action that benefits your life, though, your temporary fears and worries will never dissipate after serving their purpose and will instead linger, damaging you in both body and mind. We can understand chronic worry and rumination then not as an excess of thinking, but a deficit of meaningful action. Many highly intelligent people become trapped in patterns of rumination and overthinking precisely because they think. Chapter 5. Developing Relaxed Communication. When you're socially anxious, it seems, for the longest time, that your only goal is to socialize without being anxious. This really is the case, but once you've started to better self-regulate and engage with people with curiosity instead of fear, you may realize that this is really just the first step. It's a bit like overcoming the fear of flying. Once you start to get comfortable, you may have an aha moment when it suddenly dawns on you just how amazing flying is. You can go anywhere in the world. The point of learning to be more comfortable, natural, and confident with others is not so you can adjust yourself to some external standard or learn to endure something genuinely unpleasant. Rather, learning to socialize comfortably is about opening yourself up to the amazing world of opportunity that lies within human connection. When you leave behind your fear, you have the option to feel so many other things. Interest, curiosity, excitement, joy, connection, love, appreciation, pride, comfort. The list is endless. As you master both yourself and the way you interact with others, remind yourself of what is on the other side of your limiting fears. Bulletproof conversational skills. The first step is usually the hardest. This is definitely true of conversation. Luckily, you can easily learn to use conversation openers to help you quickly navigate those potentially awkward first moments. Chatting with someone from a cold start can be initially challenging, but try to reframe this feeling as only a mild, inevitable hesitation. Everyone feels it to some extent, but it's no reason to hold back or doubt yourself. Starting conversations is just a skill and habit like any other. The more you do it, the more familiar it will become, and the easier it will get. Here's a basic method for breezing through the opening of a conversation. Prepare by choosing a conversation starter. Actively imagine and anticipate positive responses and outcomes. Keep relaxing yourself with deep breaths and positive self-talk. Think of your conversation starter as a bullet loaded in a gun. It should be ready to go at the slightest squeeze of the trigger. It can be nerve-wracking to take that first step, But the more prepared you are, the less you have to do to trigger off a chain of events. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable and scary at first, but your goal is not to do things perfectly on the first try, but to just make that first try. So the second one is a little bit easier, and the third one easier still. Expect that it will take practice. A big part of what makes initial encounters so anxiety-provoking is not the encounters themselves, but rather all the expectations and beliefs we bring to them. If we expect to be rejected or judged, or anticipate that we'll be uncomfortable, we enter the interaction in a fearful, guarded state. Often, our fears become self-fulfilling prophecies. And that's a wrap for this episode of Voice Over Work, an audiobook sampler. We hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your journey to greater social confidence. Remember, progress takes time, so be patient with yourself and celebrate every small victory. If you'd like to delve deeper into these topics, check out Nick Trenton's book, Social Skills for the Overthinker, available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes as an audiobook. And check out Nick Trenton's website at bit.ly/Nick Trenton. Until next time, keep practicing, keep believing, and keep growing.